Chris Davis once upon a time was one of baseball's best power hitters. A 6'4", left-handed hitting first baseman who could hit moonshots, but also produced strikeout numbers that made you wonder if it was really all worth it. Over time, he earned the nickname Crush for his tape measure shots, many of which landed on or close to Eutaw Street. Davis was one of the most popular players for the O's, and at one point the team hosted a giveaway night featuring him as a superhero next to his dog sidekick, Samson. Off the field, Davis is an extremely generous and charitable guy who has been involved with the University of Maryland Children's Hospital. He and his wife Jill have made it a priority to visit and contribute financially. We'll delve into this later on. Today I went off the rails and decided that I didn't want to delay this video any longer. I feel like this is a story that hasn't been told beginning to end, so I really have been looking forward to finishing this project. But I love some good suggestions, so make sure to leave a comment and maybe you'll be featured on a future video. As always, if you enjoy, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. Hit the bell to enable all notifications so you don't miss any future Cam 23 videos. Chris Davis started his career with the Texas Rangers. The hometown kid from Longview, Texas was drafted in the 5th round of the 2006 MLB draft and would find his way to the big league club in 2008. In 80 games, he put up some great power numbers, mashing 17 homers and posting an .880 OPS. He hit .285, a much higher batting average than we as fans would grow accustomed to seeing. The only trade-off to those great numbers was that he averaged more than 1 strikeout per game. He would be no stranger to this throughout his career. Following his excellent rookie showing, Davis held on to the high K percentage without putting up nearly the same power numbers. 2011 is when the Rangers started to view Chris Davis as expendable. Mitch Moreland was excellent in a limited sample size in 2010. The Rangers decided to deal Davis along with Tommy Hunter to the Baltimore Orioles in exchange for Koji Uehara. In hindsight, this was an absolute steal for Baltimore. Tommy Hunter was a solid reliever for a few years, and Chris Davis became the starting first baseman who led the Orioles to the postseason several times. Koji Uehara, on the other hand, wasn't much help for Texas during their stretch run, posting a 4 ERA and pitching so poorly that he didn't even appear in the 2011 World Series. Chris Davis didn't truly break out as a ball player until his first season as an everyday regular in 2012. He hit the 30-homer threshold for the first time and drove in 85 runs. This would be just a preview as to the kind of season he was capable of having. Exhibit A, 2013. Davis got his first taste of postseason baseball in 2012, as the Orioles would win the wildcard game against his former team, the Texas Rangers, but they would unfortunately fall in the division series to the New York Yankees. Despite his subpar performance, Davis had a lot to look forward to come 2013. I watched Chris Davis through thick and thin, and I can't remember seeing another player who had the ability to hit any pitch out with such ease. There's one particular homer I remember where he golfed a ball down so low it nearly was scraping the dirt. He just barely flicked it, and his absolute man strength sent that ball on its way. At the top of his game, no one could crush like Davis. Sure, there were power hitters who could hit 40 or more homers, but he made it look easy. The caveat to this is Davis was a 3-outcome guy in 2013. He homered, walked, or struck out. 48% of his plate appearances contained one of those outcomes. Albeit he did have 42 doubles, an impressive side note to an otherworldly offensive season. 2013 was the year that Chris Davis checked all the boxes. He made the All-Star team, participated in the Home Run Derby, led the league in home runs with 53, and RBIs with 138. He posted an OPS north of 1,000 and batted .286. He won his first and only career Silver Slugger and finished 3rd in MVP voting, only behind Miguel Cabrera and Mike Trout. Quite literally every offensive stat imaginable was a career high for Davis in 2013. Full-fledged Chris Davis was a force to be reckoned with. After a steady rise to the top of the game in terms of power hitting, it became all the more surprising to see the year that followed his offensive explosion in 2013. He cut his homers and RBIs in half, hitting 26 dingers and driving in 72. His average fell 90 points, falling below the Mendoza line and striking out at an alarming rate. The strikeout numbers are tolerable if you're drowning it out with the long ball, but without the power numbers, you start to wonder why you're playing him every day. And the reason I say this is because the Baltimore Orioles in 2014 were an amazing team. They would take home the American League East division crown and would go on to face the Detroit Tigers in the first round of the playoffs. To add fuel to the fire, in September of 2014, Chris Davis was suspended 25 games for using Adderall, a medication that he utilized to combat his ADHD. The hyperactivity he experienced was counteracted by the drug. In the past, Davis had received permission from MLB to use it, only this time, he didn't receive proper clearance for Adderall ahead of the 2014 season. As a result, Davis was left off of the postseason roster. Having Davis out of the picture didn't hurt nearly as bad were it to have occurred a year prior. But nonetheless, you still felt bad that he wouldn't have the chance to contribute to an Orioles postseason run. The O's would go on to miraculously sweep the Detroit Tigers despite facing Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, and Rick Porcello, among others. I still remember the pure joy of watching Delmon Young clutch up in my favorite Oriole moment to date, propelling the Orioles to the championship series. For the sake of my happiness, I won't delve into the championship series because, it doesn't really matter. I'm joking, of course, but the Royals would absolutely embarrass the O's in that matchup. Chris Davis, following the Orioles' elimination, received clearance to take Adderall ahead of the 2015 season. Call it a glitch in the Matrix, but Davis reverted back to his 2013 power numbers. Well, sort of. It isn't a carbon copy, but it's close enough to merit the comment. He matched a league-leading 47 homers, drove in 117 runs, and batted .262 to pair up with an OPS north of 900. He found himself finishing in the top 15 in MVP voting, and while it pains me to say it, you can't ignore the elephant in the room. Chris Davis struck out a league-leading 208 times, which equates to more than a third of his at-bats. Following this bounce-back season, there was some hope that the 2013 season wasn't a fluke. Maybe he could build off of that successful 2015 season and find himself in the 40 home run club again. Only thing was, his future was up in the air as he reached free agency for the first time. After a long offseason, the Orioles finally decided to pony up an enormous contract to keep Crush in Baltimore long-term. The 7-year, $161 million contract the two sides would eventually agree to would constantly be cited as moments taking place before disaster. The contract is still ongoing as the deal included a major portion deferred over a 15-year window. But this would effectively create Bobby Bonilla 2.0. Starting this year until the year 2037, Davis will earn $42 million combined in that time frame, and he's been off of the team for nearly 2 years now. Back when this contract was first signed, as an Orioles fan, I remember thinking that it was a lot of money for an all-or-nothing power hitter. In time, that feeling would be justified. The soon-to-be Albatross contract started off the way you would expect it to, not well. His numbers took a major hit. His batting average was closer to 200 than he would have liked, and his 219 strikeouts were a career high and led the league. Chris Davis was accruing strikeouts at a frightening rate. The 2016 postseason for the Orioles was short-lived. Matching up against the Toronto Blue Jays, Edwin Encarnacion crushed the hopes and dreams of O's fans by hitting a deep fly that I would imagine still hasn't landed yet. Zach Britton's game-used jersey is still up for auction, by the way. Anywho, I'm not sure if there was some bad juju cast on Davis following this quick October exit, but things were falling apart slowly but surely. In his defense, Chris Davis claimed that his down 2016 was caused by a dislocated left thumb, but entering 2017, it wouldn't be a factor anymore. This is the year that Baltimore became basement dwellers, and Chris Davis had a season that perfectly sums up that disappointment. A Baltimore team just 1 year removed from a wildcard game appearance, finishing last place in the American League East. Chris Davis posted a negative WAR according to Baseball Reference for his 2017 season. His strikeout rates were through the roof, and he wasn't putting the ball in play. Except the reason isn't so simple. When you think about not making contact, usually you associate that with swinging and missing a lot, right? Well, it was quite the contrary. Davis swung at just 60% of baseballs within the zone during 2017, ranking him 13th lowest in all of baseball among those with at least 500 plate appearances. He struck out 195 times, and 75 of those were because he was caught looking. 38% of the time, Chris Davis struck out with the bat on his shoulder. The injury that hindered his 2016 was no longer an excuse, and the fans were starting to hit the panic button just 2 seasons in to this mega 7-year deal. In 2018, Chris Davis played in the same number of games, and if he hadn't already, he'd lost it at the plate. He looked baffled by fastballs down the middle. Believe me, I watched many of these at-bats, and I remember feeling a variety of emotions. It's frustrating to watch a player who used to be good failing to even make contact, but on the other hand, you felt bad, not just for Davis but the Orioles in general. 2018 was an embarrassing season. It makes a strong case to be considered the worst in franchise history. The team started a fire sale and sold off any player that could get the O's something in return. Goodbye Zach Britton, Manny Machado, Kevin Gausman, Jonathan Scope, among others. Adam Jones left in free agency following 2018, and Chris Davis became the Lone Ranger, no pun intended, from what I'll call the less significant glory days in Baltimore. Getting back to Davis's 2018 season, he would compile what is largely seen as the worst individual season in baseball history. He had truly hit rock bottom. His negative 3.6 WAR is perplexing, and he was well below the Mendoza line. So much so that he set a record for the lowest batting average in a single season since 1901. He struck out 192 times and hit just 16 homers. The fall from grace was so drastic that as a fan, you could easily forget his contributions offensively from 2012 to 2016. 3 seasons down, 4 more to go for Davis and the O's. The long and arduous journey was far from over. The beginnings of a nightmare streak began at the end of this atrocious 2018 season. September 14th was the start of a hitless streak that made history. Fans were getting restless and let the boos rain down whenever Chris Davis came up to bat. By going 0 for 54, Chris Davis cemented the longest streak without getting a hit in Major League Baseball history.
Porcello out of the full windup. Davis is going to get one. Base hit into right field. And Sadie will score. Smith will score. RBIs 1 and 2. And for Chris Davis, it's over, baby.
When Chris Davis was able to break out of this slump with a 3-hit, 4 RBI game on April 13th in 2019, the burden was finally off of his shoulders. The streak had spanned 210 days. Although it wasn't without a great deal of bad luck. Chris Davis fell victim to the defensive shift so many times during this streak. Many line drives and ground balls that would have poked through had the shift been banned, like it is in 2023. No one likes watching their favorite team have a dreadful season and seeing an ungodly amount of money being paid to one player who's on the wrong side of history. With that being said, there's still no reason good enough to hate on Chris Davis. He's a great guy, and every single one of his Oriole teammates were pulling for him to break out of the slump. Even manager Buck Showalter, in an interview several years later, attested to Chris Davis's work ethic. He remembers a time when Davis was at the field making adjustments to his swing before everyone else showed up. He worked tirelessly with Baltimore's hitting coaches and remained in great physical shape. Showalter has nothing but good things to say about Davis, and they have maintained a great relationship through the years. As Yogi Berra said, baseball is 90% mental, the other half is physical. Chris Davis learned this the hard way. He was put through the ringer mentally and emotionally during his 0 for 54 streak. He was trying, and you could visually see how exhausted he was. He truly wanted to help his team win. 2019 turned out to be another sour year for Chris Davis. But after the season came to a close, Chris and his wife Jill donated $3 million to the University of Maryland Children's Hospital at the medical center there. To date, it's the largest charitable gift ever received by the hospital from a Baltimore sports figure. The funds were used to provide life-saving care for children in Baltimore and other regions of the hospital that attended to children with congenital heart disease. The reason the Davises picked this hospital in particular was because of their own daughter, Evie, who was born with a heart defect. They wanted to make sure that as many children in the same situation as their daughter would be able to get the necessary medical care. Chris made it a priority to make sure the funds provided would be able to make a difference for many years to come. I would say that his mission was a success. Many children have and will continue to benefit greatly from Davis's generous donation. Chris Davis decided to mix things up entering the 2020 season. He changed his diet and bulked up in an effort to stay strong throughout the entire season. In spring training exhibition games, it appeared that Crush Davis had returned. In 22 at-bats, he hit 3 homers, drove in 9, and walked 10 times compared to just 4 strikeouts. He also sported a .409 batting average. Unfortunately, Major League Baseball had to cancel the rest of spring training and delay the season because of the pandemic. Sure, it was a very small sample size, but the momentum appeared to be in Davis's favor. As many of us know, the MLB season was shortened to 60 games, and Davis suffered a season-ending injury in September. While many things were trying to keep Davis away from the field in 2020, he did everything in his power to continue making charitable donations to a good cause. Davis and his wife donated $1 million to Compassion International to help at-risk children receive food and medical care during the pandemic. 2021 spring training saw Davis return for a singular game before an injured labrum ended his season again. He underwent surgery in May, and by August, Chris Davis decided to hang up the cleats after 13 years in the big leagues. Chris Davis's retirement was extremely difficult. He experienced a whirlwind of emotions. He said it best himself. There were some tears involved, man. For me, it was a really tough decision to make because physically I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do, and I hadn't been able to do that for years. With his career over, Davis didn't just sit around and pity the bittersweet ending to his career. Sure, he reflected on the ups and downs, but in the end, would decide that the best way to make a difference is to get up and be proactive. He has continued his involvement with the University of Maryland Children's Hospital since retirement, and has continued to be a great example to other ballplayers who get paid more money than they know what to do with. There's one story I didn't mention earlier in regards to Chris Davis's 0 for 54 streak that's worth mentioning, and you'll soon see why. On the day he broke the slump, Chris Davis received a heartwarming letter from Henry Frasca, a young Red Sox fan, who encouraged him to stay positive and remember that his performance on the baseball field doesn't change that he's a great person. Even though Henry rooted for a division rival, he found it within himself to write a letter of encouragement to the Orioles first baseman. The reason I bring it up at this point in the video is because he couldn't have been more right. Just because we root for different teams doesn't mean we can't be supportive of one another. None of us should be remembered by our biggest failure. The historic downfall in Albatross contract should never distract us from this important fact. Chris Davis is a human being the same as you and I. Let us never forget Chris Davis, the person, and his accomplishments as an Oriole, because once upon a time, Chris Davis was one of baseball's best power hitters. Let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on the video. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.